Now please recall to the figure of the wave function ur that is plotted with r. C is the core radius and B is the range of the nuclear force. Now outside the range of interaction, when k goes to 0, the wave function becomes kr plus delta 0. Kr plus delta 0. K is very small because outside the range of the interaction, for positive energy cases, the wave function is sin kr plus delta 0. Now if k goes to 0 but small energy neutron, then in that case sin x equal to x, we get kr plus delta 0. Now here in the case 1, this kr plus delta 0 1 for case 1, and for case 2 we get kr plus delta 0 2. And this is if the depth of the potential is minus V01, then it is sufficiently strong to produce a bound state. Then in that case, at the boundary, the wave function has a negative slope and it cuts the r-axis on the positive direction at A1. This is the triplet scattering length because this triplet state is bound, and this is the dotted line is the just bound. This is the limit. If the depth of the potential is greater than this, then it will produce bound state, otherwise not. And V02 is the strength of the potential for which the wave function, the potential cannot produce a bound state, so the wave function will diverge in this way. And if we extrapolate it, then it cuts the r-axis at A2. Here the slope is positive. Now here the total scattering length for triplet state, that is A1, that is given by C plus B plus this quantity. Suppose this is your x. So scattering length is C plus B plus x, and this x is minus tan kb by k. Now we show that x is equal to this one. Now for case 1, we know that the wave function behaves like this when k goes to 0. Now for case 1, for case 1, first case, this one, we get that the wave function u of r outside the range of interaction, when slow neutron is there, very small energy, we get kr plus delta 0 1. Delta 0 is 1 is the case tip for corresponding to this strength of the potential V01. Now this wave function cuts the r-axis at A1. So at r equal to A1, the ur will be equal to 0. So at r equal to A1, this u of r will be equal to 0. Now if u are equal to 0, then we get delta 0 1 equal to minus kr equal to A1 minus k A1. Now as the slope is here say negative slope, so this delta 0 1 we can write is phi minus k A1. Because we calculated tan delta 0 1, tan is positive in the first quadrant always, all sin tan cos, and then in the second quadrant we get negative value, so we write it pi minus k1. Or in one of our figure we have plotted that sin kr plus delta 0 like this. This is sin kr plus delta 0. Now it is the first 0 of the sin sine function, then kr plus delta 0 will be equal to here 0, and this is the second 0 of the sine function, so this should be equal to pi, because sine will be 0 at x equal to 0 and x equal to pi. So from that, as this slope is negative, so we write delta 0 1 equal to pi minus ka1. And for case 2, for second case, this is kr plus delta 0 2, that is equal to 0 at r equal to a2, or delta 0 2 is equal to, actually r equal to minus a2, we get say k a2, because here say you have to put say r equal to minus a2, or you can write say minus k a2, no problem. Right here say k equal to a2, so minus k a2. Now we consider this case, because here is no problem, because here it is r equal to 0, this distance is only a2. Now here it is c up to this c plus b, and this is this distance we have to calculate. What will be the value of x? Now we have derived a relation, delete it. Now from the relation we have derived earlier, from the relation it is k cot kb is equal to k cot kb plus c plus delta 0 1. This relation we have obtained by matching the wave function at the boundary at b plus c and their logarithmic their derivative. That is, by matching the logarithmic derivatives of the wave function u2 and u3 at the boundary b plus c, we obtained this relation. We derived it earlier. Now we can write it that 1 by k tan kb, that is 1 by k tan b plus c plus delta 0 1. Now substitute the value of delta 0 1, 1 by k tan kb is equal to 1 by k tan kb plus c, delta 0 1 is equal to pi minus a1 k. For case 1, delta 0 1 is equal to pi minus a1 k. So tan of pi minus this quantity, so we can write it so 1 by k tan pi minus k a1 minus b minus c. So tan of pi minus theta 1 by k, obviously minus will come, tan of pi minus theta minus tan theta, you get tan k a1 minus b minus c. Now we consider the very slow neutron, k goes to 0. So if k is 0, so tan of theta is approximately equal to theta. So for when k goes to 0, we obtain for very slow neutron. So when k goes to 0, or we can write it, say 1 by k tan AB is equal to minus 1 by k, say tan kx, where x is equal to your this quantity a1 minus b minus c, which we have determined that x. So when this k goes to 0, very slow neutron, then in that case we get 1 by k tan kb is equal to minus kx, tan x is equal to x by k, that is minus x, or x is equal to that one. This proof that x is equal to minus 1 by k tan k. Now therefore in your figure you see that what is the value of k. Therefore this, so the triplet scattering length A1, from this A1 is equal to x plus b plus c. So the triplet scattering length is A1, that is equal to x plus b plus c. B plus c is, b and c is known to us because it is the potential parameters. So we can write it c plus b minus, this is tan AB by k. So this is the triplet scattering length. If the potential is given, its parameters are known, because here V0 is also there inside it, then one can find the triplet scattering length from this formula. Now we have earlier derived the expression for the scattering cross section in terms of the triplet and the singlet scattering lengths. The total scattering cross section in terms of the singlet and triplet scattering lengths is written as sigma, the total scattering cross section sigma, that is 3 pi at square plus pi as square. At is the triplet scattering length and as is the singlet scattering length. So, and the experimental value, because the scattering cross section is experimentally determined quantity, it is the matching ground between the theory and the experiment. Experimentally one can measure the scattering cross section. So experimental value of this experimental value of sigma is 20.36 bars. This is the experimental determined quantity. Now if we substitute it here experimental value, then here we get 3 pi t square plus pi s square. Two unknowns are there and we have one equation. Therefore, to find the value of the triplet scattering length and the singlet scattering length, another type of measurement is required, so that we get say two equations, and from that one can solve and find what is the triplet and the individual value of the singlet scattering length. Now, determine the values of AT and AS. To determine the values of AT and AS, another kind of measurement is required at low energy. So that we can get another equation and one can easily solve the individual value equations and get the individual value. Now the total scattering cross section, which is written as that is 4 pi s square, it is the scattering length, and which is A equal to sine delta 0 by k. Now what is this one, sine delta 0 k? This is the amplitude of the scattered wave. So the scattering cross section can be written in terms of the amplitude of the scattered wave for slow neutrons, which is called with the scattering length A. Now because what was our total scattered wave function psi sc, you recall it, that is e to the power I k z plus e to the power I kr plus delta 0 sine delta 0. This is the form of the scattered wave function, S wave scattered wave function. That means e to the power I kr plus delta 0 by r. This gives you the spherical wave, and this is the amplitude sine delta 0 by k. This is the scattering amplitude. So if one can measure the scattering amplitude, you will get the scattering cross section. So therefore, in scattering experiment, we always find the scattering amplitude. Theoretically, we find the scattering amplitude and take the square of it, because it is proportional to the scattering cross section. Then one can calculate the theoretical value of the scattering cross section, and this is experimentally measured quantity. So one can tally between these two and find the merit of your theory which is developed. Now, so this is the scattering amplitude of the scattered wave. Now, when the scattering will take place from the protons by neutrons, a beam of neutron is coming and a proton target is there. Generally, the paraffin materials are used. It's a hydrogen rich element. Now, what may happen, that the scattering center, that is the protons, the scattering centers may distribute, say, disorderly or orderly, as in a crystal. If the scattering centers distribute disorderly, haphazard way, then in that case, the number of scattered neutrons in a particular direction is proportional to the number of scattering centers. Because in case of, you know that in case of interference due to some incoherent sources, how the final amplitude or the intensity is calculated? We first say take the square of amplitudes of individual waves and then add. And in case of say coherent scattering, what do? We first add the amplitudes algebraically and then take the square of the resultant amplitude, and that's why we get the distribution of the intensity, because at certain place we get the maximum and certain place we get minimum or sometimes zero. Therefore, here also the scattering may take place in that fashion. If the scattering centers are distributed in disorderly manner, then in that case you have to add the amplitude, square of the amplitudes, and if they are placed in they exist in the orderly manner as in a crystal, then in that case what will happen? The diffraction will take place. When the neutron will pass through the scattering centers, then the diffraction will take place and the redistribution of the energy will take place. And in that case, we have to first add the scattering amplitudes, that is the scattering lengths, and then take its square, then we get the scattering cross section. This is called the coherent scattering length. Or in the first case, when disorderly manner the scattering centers are arranged, that is called the incoherent scattering. So when the scattering centers are arranged in a disorderly manner, that is acting incoherently. The number of scattered neutrons, in that case, the number of scattered neutrons in a particular direction is proportional to the number of scattering centers. And if they are placed in orderly manner as in a crystal, in this case, that is the squares of the amplitudes add. That means 80 square plus AS square you have to add in this way. And when the scattering centers are arranged in a orderly manner as in a crystal. You know, in a crystal the atoms and molecules are arranged orderly. If the scattering centers are arranged in that fashion, in an orderly manner, then in that case what will happen? The diffraction of neutrons will take place. Then the diffraction takes place. And in that case, we know, in that case, the distribution is no longer uniform. As we know, in case of diffraction or interference, that maximum and minima are occurs. Now the distribution is no longer uniform, and in that case, in this case, the wave amplitudes, that is the scattering amplitude, in this case, the wave amplitudes that is the scattering lengths and algebraically that is, you have to consider the sign. And then take this square to find the scattering cross section. So we have to add it algebraically. Rather than the squares. Now therefore, in case of overhead scattering, the average scattering length for overhead scattering from, say, hydrogen with spin directions randomly oriented is given by that is, the hydrogen atoms are arranged regularly in a material. That is, hydrogen rich element is considered, which is a perfect crystal. in which the hydrogen atoms are arranged regularly, but the spin directions are randomly oriented and the neutrons are scattered from this. So there are equally probable, there are four possibilities, either three triplet state scattering parallel state or one anti-parallel state. All are equally probable. So from that, the scattering which will take in place, in that case, we have to first add the scattering amplitude for triplet and singlet and then take its square to find the scattering length. Now, experimentally, the coherent scattering length is 1.89 minus 1.89 30. So, in that case, one can write the coherent scattering length is given by AC. C stands for the coherent scattering length is 1/4 3 AT plus AS. Because there are four possibilities, out of three is the triplet state, one is the singlet state. So this is the coherent scattering length. And experimentally, the measured value of the coherent scattering length, the experimental value AC equal to minus 1.89 Kelvin. Therefore, we get two equations. One is this one and another is sigma 0. This is 1 minus 1.89 equal to this. Another is 20.36. Barn is equal to what we get? Another equation, that is 3 pi AT square plus pi AS square. So two equations, here minus 1.89, so one can solve the values for AT and AS, and if we solve these equations, then solving these two equations, one gets that is triplet scattering length is 5.38 Fermi, 5.38 Fermi, and singlet scattering length, which is a negative quantity, as we have seen in the figure, that is A2 is negative, is minus 23.7 Fermi. Because when the scattering length is positive, that means that potential forms a bound state, and if the scattering length is negative, then it is unbound. Therefore, for singlet state is unbound, it has the minus 23.7 30, and triplet state is bound, it is 5.38 Fermi. Now, we have another expression for the triplet scattering length, which we have just derived, that for triplet scattering, what is AT? That is B plus C minus tan K B by K. This is another expression. Now, these two are determined from the experimental value, because the experimental scattering cross section 20.36 bar, experimental coherent scattering length minus 1.89. By substituting all these in the equation, we get AT and S. So these are the experimental values of the triplet and the singlet scattering length. Now we calculate it theoretically, and if our theoretically calculated value matches with this, then we say that our concept of the repulsive squirrel potential is correct. Now we shall calculate it. the theoretical value of the triplet scattering length. Now we consider a potential well of certain depth and range with a certain chord radius. Now the value of k, what is value of k square is equal to twice m by h cross square into V0. V0 is the strength of the potential, depth of the potential. Now if we consider with the values that V0 is equal to 73 MeV, B is the range of the potential is 1.337 Fermi, and the core radius C is 0.4 Fermi. If we substitute all these values in this equation, now for neutron proton scattering, twice m by h cross square, one can calculate it. One can you get the 41.47 MeV Fermi square. This is the value of the h cross square by twice m. H cross square by twice m. Twice m is the reduced mass. Actually here you get h cross square by mp, mass of the proton, mass of the neutron, whatever you put, you get this one. Now with all these values, if we substitute, then this AT will come, triplet scattering length, theoretical value, there is 5.382 Fermi, which is in good agreement with the experimental value, which we have calculated, 5.38. So it is a square well potential with the hard core. So this hard core square well potential has the ability to produce the binding energy of the deuteron, correct binding energy of the deuteron, and the correct scattering lengths and the cross sections. So the picture of the deuteron can be well explained on the basis of this square repulsive core potential. Now, therefore, what is conjecture? Does a repulsive core square well potential triplet potential gives correctly the deuteron binding energy the size of the deuteron and zero energy triplet NP scattering cross section and zero energy NP triplet scattering cross section. Now the singlet scattering length which we observe that is negative, which means that the wave function does not reach its maximum within the range of the potential. It means at e equal to 0, this k goes to 0, the wave function does not reach its maximum within the range of the potential, does not reach a maximum inside the wire. And thus no bound states exist. For the NP system in singlet state. Now the experimental value of the singlet scattering length, we have seen that as AS, that is minus 23.7 Henry. Okay. Now with AS is equal to this, if we calculate the V0 strength of the singlet state, then it comes out to be 54.7 MeV. The strength of the potential depth will be equal to 54.7 MeV. Whereas (57 MeV) is required to produce a bound state. To produce a bound state with the range of the potential B is 1.337 MeV. In case of triplet potential wire depth V0 is equal to 73 MeV, we have considered this is our range of the potential and C is the core radius. Then we get the correct value of the AT, triplet scattering length. Now singlet scattering length is, this is the experimental value. Substituting this in the equation, we get V0S is 54.7 with this range. When B is equal to this, V0S will come this one. But for minimum depth of the potential is required to produce a bound state is 57 MeV, which is less than this one. We obtain less value, so that singlet state is unbound, because to produce a bound state in singlet state we require this more than this 57 MeV, which does not come, because this is the experimental value, the correct value, experimental value. When you substitute it, then the strength of the potential it comes this one. So the singlet state is unbound, but the force is not zero. The depth of the potential is there, sufficiently depth is there, 54.7 mm, but it is insufficient to produce a bound state. Therefore, only the triplet state is bound and singlet state is unbound. Therefore, from the scattering experiment also, we can get the information of the bound states. So, scattering, that's why is very important, because in most of the atomic and subatomic region, all the information is gathered from the scattering experiments, which is an indirect method. Now, in case of scattering, generally when we go to any unknown problem, we consider a particular potential and generally we first solve the Schrodinger equation, but in the scattering experiment, we generally prefer to find the irregular solution of the Schrodinger equation. And in case of scattering, this irregular solution of the Schrodinger equation has a wide importance, because the irregular solution has the ability to produce both the scattering and the bound state observables. Now, in the next class, we shall discuss the effective range, another low energy parameter. One low energy parameter is scattering length. Scattering length. Repeat. Another is effective range. All are, say, low energy scattering parameter, that means the zero energy approximation. So, the scattering cross section or the phase shift can be expressed in terms of two low energy parameters. One is scattering length, another is effective range. Effective range actually determines the more or less the range of the nuclear force. Okay. So, in the next class we shall discuss effective range R0, which gives you the range of the force from which the scattering is actually taking place. That is the energy dependence of the scattering phase shift, because the scattering phase shift depends on the energy. Different energy, you get the different phase shifts. So, energy dependence of the scattering phase shift can be expressed in terms of two low energy parameters. One is scattering length, another is called the effective range. It determines the overall range of the nuclear force.